And welcome to today's Audit Committee. I just have a few things to say before we move on to the formal agenda for today's meeting. Firstly, the formal legal standing of the meeting is being held under the government statutory instruments, Local Government England, the Local Authorities Coronavirus Flexibility of Local Authority Meetings England Regulations 2020. To take account of these regulations, Bristol City Council has produced a series of virtual meeting procedure rules, and these are available on our website. This means that the decision made by the committee today will have the same standing and validity as if they've been made in person at a meeting in City Hall. Members of the public who have submitted public forum statements and questions, I can confirm that these have been published ahead of this meeting. So can I just ask members of the committee to ensure that their sound is muted when they're not speaking, and when you have spoken, please remember to mute your sound again. And if you wish to speak, please can you indicate that by using the Zoom raise hand facility. So I now move on to Councillor Stevens to move the formal agenda for the meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm ideally it's temporary chair because Councillor Mark Rain is trying to dial in, or whatever it's called nowadays. So I'll get us rolling, and then when Councillor Rain comes online, I'll hand over. So we've got apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Nicola Bowden-Jones, Chair. Okay,
thank you. And then we move on to declarations of interest. So I'll get my one over and done with. So I have been advised to declare a pecuniary interest. I've written a book about my experiences of local government. I have considered today's agenda and currently do not feel the need to withdraw from any item. So that's me. Does anyone else have a declaration? Tim?
Chair. Firstly, Chair, I was just wondering, when you make your declarations, you're going to be doing it between now and May. Do you want to put the link into your book as well, just to make it easier for people listening? Just briefly, I have a relative who has an EHCP I see send on the agenda.
Thank you. I actually took my poster down, which sometimes replaces the cheetah behind me, just to try and have some air of professionalism, but I haven't succeeded very well. Any other declarations? No. Okay. So I'm going to move on to item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. So there we go. Does anybody have any questions on the minutes?
I do, Chair.
Okay. That's Adebola, yeah?
Yes. So on page 7, at the top of the page, regarding comments I made during the last meeting, Chief Internal Auditor, I am not the Chief Internal Auditor. I'm an independent member of the committee. So that correction needs to be made.
Okay, is that for you, Oliver?
Yeah, that's an error I need to correct, but thanks for bringing it to my attention.
Okay, thank you. Any other things on the minutes? Okay, does anyone want to propose them?
I'm happy to.
Thank you, Chris. Any seconder? Oh, loads. Ollie, I saw first. Right, so they're approved. And then, so minutes of previous meeting. Now we come to public forum, which we had Suzanne, then Joanna Booth, and then myself. So is Suzanne Audrey in the waiting room?
Cheers, Chair. I'm just bringing her in now.
Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne, can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can, thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, Suzanne, I'm temporary chair at the moment. So you can ask your question, and then you have two follow-ups, which let's see how many questions you've got. You've got 2, so you can either have 2 on one of them or 1 each or something like that. Over to you, Suzanne.
Okay. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm just going to switch off the YouTube thing that's causing havoc. That's better, isn't it? Apologies for that. So sorry. So my question had been this whole issue about whether you're given, you know, you as a committee have the same level of access to the information that you need as the cabinet and scrutiny. And to be honest, I'm still not feeling that question has been answered. It sort of sounds like maybe not, that there isn't really, you don't necessarily have that right. So just in the light of Bundred, who was saying that senior officers have got responsibility to all of you, as well as to the mayor and cabinet, I just wondered whether it's possible to answer that question directly. You know, are there measures in place to make sure that you do have that same access?
So I think, thank you for that question. I think that should be delivered direct to the monitoring officer, that's Tim O'Gara. Is that right, Tim? Just nod. Yes, okay. So Tim, do you want, did you pick up Suzanne's question, or do you want her to repeat it? This is her supplementary.
I understand the question, Chair. I think it relates to the question that you've also put in, to which there's a slightly more detailed response, in which I've explained that I will be writing to all members of the Audit Committee with full details of the legal regime within which rights of access to information are governed. I'm not sure there's anything more that I can say this afternoon, and I'm happy in due course that councillors, should they see fit to do so, share that advice with Ms. Audrey.
Okay, thank you. And Suzanne, there's a fuller answer right at the end of the pack on page 11, if you've had a chance to look at that. So now you've got the second question, which relates to the SIRO assurance report. Do you wish to put in your supplementary?
Yeah, there seems to be quite a lot of mystery around these. Apparently, so some monitoring being done, or, you know, analysis being done about what we think across the city, and I can understand that. What I can't understand is that for the last year, there have been monthly reports made and no one's allowed to see them. I'm presuming somebody sees them, but they don't seem to be available to other councillors or to members of the public, despite the fact they're described as, you know, being an analysis of how we're all feeling. So I don't feel my question was answered. And I just wonder if anyone can say why these are being held up for more than a year. Why are we not seeing these reports? But, you know, beyond just saying we're going to publish them in the future, what is the reason for not publishing them now?
So I think that is a question again for Tim O'Gara. The first answer says that FOI is delaying them. So if it is to you, Tim, perhaps you could explain why we're allowing FOI to delay them. And then secondly, pick up Suzanne's supplementary, which might be fairly similar.
I'll give it a go, Chair, but I didn't actually prepare the response to this question. It's rather tangential to the SIRO assurance report that you've received. I trust that if there's an FOI that's being progressed, that a response to that will be provided in due course. The second question, I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that, and I suggest that is referred to officers for a written response.
Okay, Suzanne, do you want to repeat your second question so we can make sure it's properly minuted, because it's going to be forwarded on for a response?
Yeah, so well, I won't word this very well, but so it's, you know, it's beyond saying that we will publish these in the future. I understand that's being said. What is the reason for not making them available regularly now?
Okay, so
and that, by that I mean, sorry, to the public and to others who might want to look at them.
Wherever Oliver's gone, there you are, Oliver. If you've picked that up, and we'll make sure. Tim, who should it be written to? Okay. Who should we send that for a fast, speedy response?
I'm not 100% sure, Chair.
Okay.
I'm sure it will make its way to the right person.
Okay. Okay, right. Suzanne, thank you very much for that. And we really, oh, sorry, Tim.
Sorry.
Don't go away, Suzanne, stay.
Sorry, I realise it's not an open question time, but public questions to the chair of committee are always difficult. And obviously, initially, the answers are written by officers. I don't know how much Councillor Brain, who's now in the meeting, had on influencing the answers. But why do we not know who has written the answers? They've been written by an officer. I actually think their name should be at the bottom of it if it's not actually an answer from the chair. Maybe Councillor Brain could clarify, because some of these answers are clearly not going to be going down too well with members of the committee, shall we say.
The answer to the question is I've had no influence whatsoever.
Are you up? Did you say you were going to answer that, Mark?
No.
No, okay. So neither of us have seen them, and there are some later on which, as you rightly predict, Tim, probably won't go down too well. And are the answers, this is for Tim O'Gara then, are these answers supposed to be from the chair of a committee?
No.
This is for Tim O'Gara.
Chair, no, they're not. They are. The answers are prepared by officers. I'm just afraid I don't know who that particular answer off the top of my head.
Legally, are the answers to public questions supposed to come from a chair, even though officers have assisted? No.
No.
Okay, so they do come from an officer direct, unmediated by the chair of the committee.
Okay. Chair, we should be very clear. The officer should be putting their name to the answer. If we're going to rewrite the constitution and change the way the council always operated in the past, which is questions were to committee chair and they provided the answers, admittedly often heavily guided by officers, I accept that. If that's now no longer the case, and they are coming direct from officers, I expect officers to have their names to those answers and to be present at the meeting.
Well, my view on this is that answers to questions on committees have never come from a chair anywhere. They've always been written by an officer somewhere. The name has never been added by the officer. So adding the name of an officer would be a change. Continuing with anonymous answers from officers would be maintaining the status quo. I don't see how we can do that just for the audit committee. In any case, the whole constitution of the council will have to be changed for all committees, not just the audit committee, in order to have officers' names at the bottom of the question. So I disagree with having officers' names at the bottom of the question, unless this is going to be practiced throughout the entire council.
Okay, I'm tempted to hand over the chairmanship now, as Councillor Brain has arrived. I want to check that you are ready to take on that task, Mark.
Yes and no. I'm as ready as I'll ever be. I can't access the papers on ModGov on my lovely council IT. I do, however, have my mobile phone with the agenda on it. And so at least I will know what's coming next.
Okay, well, just to help, so yeah. Suzanne's asked, Audrey's asked some very pertinent questions, which have been semi-answered, and there's some we need in writing. So we can let Suzanne leave the waiting room now. And it is Joanna Oliver. Is Joanna Booth in the waiting room?
Yes, she is, Chair. So I'll just put Suzanne out and then bring her in. Just
and while that's happening, then I'll hand the chairman baton over to you, Mark.
Actually, Clive, because my emails haven't worked for about a week or so either, I haven't seen these questions. So if you could possibly handle the questions, I'll take over after.
Okay. Okay, then you take it at the end. Yeah. Maybe you should handle my question.
Oh, you got what? You can answer yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Right, so I'm still, here's Joanna, just arriving. So I'm still chair until my particular question. So, Joanna Booth, you've got some lovely questions here. Would you like to give us some supplementaries? I think you have two. Let's have a see. How many questions have you got? 1, 2, 3, 3 it looks like. So you can have 2 supplementaries.
Yeah.
Fire away. Tell us which one, though, you're asking about.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. I won't ask any supplementaries for the Bristol Energy questions because they seem to be pointing me to the Bristol Energy auditors and FOI. So I'll leave those be. My first question is in relation to my second question is in its relation to impact social. I just want to clarify something before I ask. And it says, we note that your complaint to the ICO has been withdrawn by you. Now, this was a misinterpretation. I have 2 complaints with the ICO about impact social. One is to do with the FOI, which I have asked them to withdraw because from what my response has been, I understand that I would have received the answer at the same time as the council would have answered the FOI. But my complaint in relation to the GDPR notice not being present when the council was collecting information is still live. And I have asked ICO to make sure that they confirm with me that that is still live. So with that clarification in mind, and with the council telling me that they are very proud to be a council that invests in listening to what people have to say and working hard to provide opportunities for people to share their views, I understand that impact social costs £90,000 for the 3-year contract for 30 months. How much does it cost to run the quality of life surveys, which also seem to do a similar purpose of identifying what Bristolians need and say about the council? And how much does the Citizens Forum cost? Could someone answer that for me?
Sorry, I got the quality of life survey, and then
Yes.
the other thing you were after,
There's a Citizens Forum.
Citizens Forum, okay.
Where people
Thank you
answer
very much.
surveys.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that Denise is going to be closest to having an answer for that, although you probably don't know them off the top of your head.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor Stevens and Joanna. Unfortunately, I don't know that answer off the top of my head, but I can take it back and give you a written response back in terms of that.
Okay, thank you. Does that count as one of Joanna's questions or 2 of them? Okay,
I think that's one.
It sounds like one to me as well.
Yeah.
So Joanna, you have a second supplementary.
Okay, so I have a second question. And again, that is to do with the GDPR notice and my complaint to the ICO about that. When my answer was drafted up, the answer says that with regards to the lack of a GDPR notice on the BCC website, our privacy statement can be found here, and a link was provided. Now, I have looked at that link, and from what I can tell, that's the latest iteration of it, obviously. But at the time, from 2008 March onward, that data privacy notice did not reflect that. It did not look like that. And when I checked the spreadsheet for how information was retained, kept, stored, and for how long it would be used, there was no notice in relation to all of these about how our information that impacts social tracks and keeps and provides the council is kept. So can someone confirm to me from 2018 to today, what has that privacy notice said about our data and how it is kept, stored, retained, and used? Because while I understand that it is not possible for the council to inform the thousands of people they say that they analyze every month, we still have the right to see a notice on that website about how that information is used, stored, processed, kept, and for how long it is kept. So I would like someone to provide that for me because my complaint is still live with the ICO.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't go away because we might get closer to an answer. So I think we're looking for somebody who would be called the information officer to help us on that. Again, I'm now looking at Tim O'Gara as possibly the closest person to know what's going on. Tim.
Thank you, Chair. So I think the level of detail that's been requested by Ms. Booth will require a little bit of looking into some historic records. So we'll need to provide a written response to that question. I would have thought that would go to the Council Statutory Data Protection Officer, who is Ben Hooton. I think he's down to actually join a meeting a little bit later
Okay, thank you. And you can look back at the video if you haven't got the full detail of what's being asked. Okay, thank you very much, Joanna.
Thank you.
Lovely of you to come and visit us, and maybe we'll make some progress. So just before we get to my question, which is when I'll hand over to Councillor Brain, I'm a bit concerned that we're using FOI to actually delay answers. It strikes me that the original purpose of FOI was to be more open and transparent. And from what I've seen, certainly from the first question, Suzanne Audrey, that FOI is delaying the answers, and that really seems wrong. I don't know who would like to talk about that. As possibly Tim O'Gara again.
I'm not proposing to have a debate about the particular question, Councillor Stevens. I think we agreed to follow up, and we will do so. I haven't got enough information relating to that particular.
No, okay. In which case, I think what we'll do is later on, Councillor Brain might decide to inject that sort of as any other business at the end, so that we can bring it to a future audit meeting. So, Councillor Mark Brain, are you ready to handle my public question?
Yes, I am. Fire away.
Thank you very much. And you're officially chair from now on.
Thanks for
So, I was getting very frustrated, like lots of people, with lack of progress about openness of information to Audit Committee and us being able to have the information to do our jobs. And I decided that the only way to get a straight answer was to actually write a question that forced yes or no answers. And the answer, according to this, is different than was given at the Whips meeting on Friday. And the answer is no, we will not get equality of information. It's unlawful, apparently, according to this. So my first supplementary, Mr. Chair, is that I would like a list, not right now, but list and details for exactly which laws, regulations, etc., mean that Audit Committee cannot have the same access as Cabinet and Scrutiny. Tim, is that not right now, but can you come back to us with that information, please?
As the response to question 1 intimates, Councillor Stevens, that was my intention.
Okay, thank you very much. And my second question is to you, Tim. When did you first see my question? I submitted it on Tuesday afternoon. Did you get to see it early on, or have you seen the answer at all?
I prepared the answer, Councillor Stevens.
Right.
I can't remember whether it was Tuesday or Wednesday I saw it.
Okay. So presumably, therefore, the answer that was at the Whips meeting on Friday, and Councillor Kent can talk a bit more about that because he was there, was prepared by you, Tim O'Gara. That's a question.
I wasn't at the Whips meeting on Friday, so I'm afraid I'm not sure.
Do you want me to come in on that?
Yes, that would be a good idea. You're a whip. Yes, good.
Yeah,
because I was at the Whips meeting and I gave that answer because I was informed that we would, a while back, that we would, after the last council meeting where it was raised, I was informed that we would be getting access. So that's why I explained that on Friday at the Whips meeting, that we would be getting the equal access. So I don't know what law we would be breaking. So I'm with you, Clive and Tim, that I would like to know that as well, when Osm can have it and the Audit Committee can't, because it was made perfectly clear at full council, every group raised that concern about the access to information.
Yeah.
So just after that, I was informed that we would be getting it. They would be looking into it and we would get it. So I'm with you.
So, Councillor Jackson, just to make sure we know what information you were using for Friday, i.e. 2 or 3 days ago, that wasn't information you'd had earlier in the week. That was
No,
information you'd had a week or two
a
before
couple of
then.
weeks ago. Yeah,
Okay.
Well back, yeah.
Okay. Tim O'Gara, you're off this particular hook. So it's all rather infuriated us. And I would like, if I may then, just to follow up with a second question. Tim O'Gara, as monitoring officer, when you're looking at information, and especially the Local Government Act, Schedule 12A, there is a public interest clause at, I think it's clause 10, which enables you to decide the public interest is more important than the reason than the public interest for exempt nature. Is that, you make those decisions about particular bits of information, do you write up those decisions so that they can be inspected? So a particular document comes, you decide it's going to stay exempt. That decision is presumably written down and your reasons why. Is it possible to inspect under exempt circumstances how you write down your decisions, please?
So any decision that I arrive at as the council's monitoring officer is done in consultation with other colleagues, principally the colleagues in legal services. That information is subject to legal professional privilege, which is an exemption under Schedule 12A.
So your thinking is exempt as well, effectively. That's okay. I finished now. Before I lose my rag. So I'm going to hand back to the chair, Councillor Martin Brain.
Thank you. Right. Well, we got where we got to with that. However happy or unhappy we may be, and I'm not happy yet. Quite conveniently, the next item on the agenda is the work programme. And in commencing the item on the work programme, I'd like to suggest that our part of the agenda for the next meeting should include an item on access to council information. Would members be happy with that?
Definitely agreed.
That sounds like a good idea then. So we will ask for an officer report which lists all the legal reasons of why we're not allowed to know the things that we need to know in order to do our job, and then we'll take it from there, I guess. Does that seem reasonable? Yes. Okay.
It does, Chair, but can I just add why it's legally okay for Osm to have it as well? So can we get that question?
Yeah. Why can Osm have it, and why can you? But the Audit Committee, who you know, responsible for overseeing risk and so on, why can't we have it, Tim?
Chair, well, rather than Mr. O'Gara have answered that, as I regularly exchange emails with him over access to information, Osm actually have it specifically stated within law that they have right to access to additional paperwork. Audit Committee don't. I mean, my dispute with Mr. O'Gara would be then that the law states that it would be illegal for us to have access. I'm interested to see the legal opinion when we receive it, but just to clarify, it does actually state in law that over scrutiny have additional access rights.
But we don't. Well, okay. Clive.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just to remind people the reasons why this is so important. If officers sent our external auditors accurate and timely information, I personally would be a little bit happier. But we had complaints from our previous external auditors about the contract of the ex-chief executive, and that was one of the reasons that delayed the accounts months and months, if not years. And then secondly, with the help of Jeff Gollop, the chair of Osm, he explained that our auditors were not getting accurate information about Bristol Energy. So those are two examples that I'm aware of where audit really needs this type of information to know that officers are actually passing on information. There may well be other examples as well. There was one that may or may not fit into this, is the 2018 budget meeting, where the special educational needs cuts were almost hidden from full council when we made our budget vote. That's slightly different, but again, it's really important that we get access to information to understand what it is about our governments that's going wrong. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Clive. Okay, we are, of course, on. Oh, Tim, yes.
Sorry, Chair, as we're on the work programme, it's a slightly different topic, but I did want to raise, in November, I believe that we have companies assurance. So I presume that's looking at the external companies. I think as the Audit Committee, we should be doing a best value assessment of the sale of Bristol Energy, so we can fully understand the whether the council got best value over that or not. Is that something which we could consider as part of the November meeting?
I think we should consider it. Whether November is the best time for it or not. I mean, I'll have to ask Denise how, if she's concerned, how the sale is going, and will we be in a position to come to such a conclusion in November?
There are a couple of points there. So the assurance is generally a assurance from Audit Committee to Audit Committee. And what's generally produced is an assurance report that gives you details of all of the activities of the subsidiaries and the Audit Committee's view. In terms of a value for money review, then in reality that would need to be a detailed report on value for money. You won't be able to consider value for money by just looking at details and stats that may or may not be exempt. So in reality, that needs to be subject to a full value for money report on the sale, and that hasn't been commissioned.
Okay, do we expect such a report?
The details of the sales needs to conclude, and that hasn't concluded as yet. So we'd almost need to wait for the sale to fully conclude before making any determination or commissioning a report.
Do you think that's likely by November, or do you think it might take a little longer?
I wouldn't expect it to be fully concluded by November.
No, okay. I think we should do it, but I think we should do it at the right time when we have all.
Yeah, so you will have the assurance report at the November committee, which will come from the holding companies audit committee, and then you could decide at that point whether there's any additional information that you need.
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like we're not going to be in a position to do this properly in November, and I want to do it properly. So we can take the reports we've already got coming in November, which is fine, and then I think we should do what Denise recommends, which is in November we then find out where we are with regard to the sale, is it concluded, and so on, and then at that point we can have a look at the value for money for the sale. Right. Anything else on the work programme? Clive?
Yep. Thank you, Chair. So on page 4, in fact, actually it starts just on the bottom of page 3. It's the public forum question about Colin Moulton. And the answer says that what Colin Moulton is doing is shared in the HR report in April. So I looked that up. It's 30th of April, and that information is not available to the public. And so I think it is unconscionable, I think that's a legal term, to provide an answer to a member of the public that they are not able to look up. So I really think that this whole aspect of treating the public properly, treating them with the correct information, is as important as Audit Committee itself. So I would like the answer to point 6, action number 6, to be rewritten so that a member of the public can actually access what Colin Moulton is currently doing, please?
Or at least say why they can't.
Yeah, why it's exempt,
Yeah.
if it is.
Okay. Who wrote that particular passage then? 'Cause I didn't. No.
To assist, Chair, could Councillor Stevens just give us the page reference in today's papers, and I'll make sure that with Oliver that gets to the right officer.
Thank you. It's on the separate small papers, which are called the hang on.
The action sheet.
Yeah, the work programme.
Work programme and action sheet were in a supplementary because they were late. So that's why they're.
So it's the bottom of page 3, and it's action number 6. And it's actually got Denise Murray as listed, but it might be one of your staff or something like that.
Michael had his hand up.
Yeah, can I just come in? So we did take that away and take it to the Executive Director for a response. So it's my understanding that has come from the Executive Director, but Oliver would need to confirm. But in reality, this is the second or third time I've been asked the same question. I believe that actually, if you're not happy with responses, then you need to ask the Executive Director to attend and answer the questions directly.
Okay, well, that'd be fine. If the monitoring officer thinks it needs to be exempt under Local Government Act 1972, blah, 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 then fine. Otherwise, there's a lot of public interest around what he is still doing. Thank you very much.
Councillor Chair, can I, in response to the question at the last Audit Committee, a list of projects Colin Moulton is working on was provided in response to the public question. The list of this was sort of supplementary for further information. So a list of projects has been provided to the public question.
Can't hear, Clive.
No, in which case I think it'd be good to circulate that to us as well, because I can't see what that answer is from that HR committee.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything else on the work programme? No. Moving right along. External audit update report. Who's presenting this one?
Thank you, Chair. That'll be myself, John Roberts.
Hi, John.
Yes, hi everyone. There's 2 reports combined sequentially within this agenda item. The first is on pages 10 to 26, which is the annual audit letter. Now that is a summary of the audit that we completed and reported to this committee in a number of meetings and a great deal of detail. So that summary, it's required upon us by our auditing rules, but this is the last year that annual audit letters will be done because in effect they're superfluous. They repeat information that's already been considered and information that's already been considered in public session. So so this is the last of the old style annual audit letters being replaced by an annual auditor's report, which will cover the new VFM audit responsibilities. So I didn't propose to take members through the detail of that document because it's all content that you've seen before and discussed before at length.
Okay, thank you, John.
Okay, and then the next document then is the actual update itself, pages 27 through. And within that document, we've started the audit of the accounts. Matters are on track, as on track as they can be. We haven't found anything yet we weren't expecting to. So that's just the way that the audit is progressing. But what we do include in this document is access to the thinking that's coming out of the impact of COVID on the sector. That runs from pages 32 through and talks about councils following best practice around forecasting scenarios, risk assessing their future finances, and what we're finding from our work across the country. That section on COVID then is then built on where we talk about the accounting aspects of COVID and a detailed publication that we produced there. And we also refer to a number of other complementary publications, one from the National Audit Office, one from Localis and Grant Thornton, which is a joint arrangement that we've worked through on the housing market, and finally on SIPFA and PSAA. So those are reported for members' information. The most detail is on the COVID section that we included in the first of those updates. Since the last meeting, the Redmond review of local audit has reported, and we're starting to digest the findings of those. Extremely relevant for our work and the work of this committee, and we're discussing that with Denise and colleagues shortly. It would be, I think, time well spent for us to sort of invest in maybe some a workshop training type event further downstream on the impact of that review, which is absolutely central to what we'll be doing in the local audit world.
A couple of things, John. Firstly, the workshop would be very helpful, but I think it probably won't be very helpful to most of us, because most of this committee won't be on this committee next year. So in terms of timing, if it's possible to do that after the election in May, I'm now assuming there will be an election in May, because at the moment I don't assume anything in life anymore. Every time I turn on the news, there's something different about COVID. Who knows what happens next? But I'm assuming there's an election in May. Then probably better to do it after then.
Okay. Well, one thing I would say, Chair, is that the Redmond review is a it is just that. It's a review, and then it's up to government to take forward the recommendations and so on. It is an opportunity between now and then for this council and this committee to actually, seek to get its voice heard, and influence in the direction of policy there.
Yeah. I mean, it must be particularly difficult at this point in time to be carrying out audits and so on with situation with COVID. I mean, every time, like I said, every time I turn on the news, the advice that the public gets seems to be different to what it had been 24 hours previously. And I'm wondering, are local authorities encountering the same joy of not knowing where the dickens they are at any given time? And is that causing you any problem?
Well, it's very uncertain, and it's very uncertain when it comes to what we describe as the going concern assessment, but actually what we're doing in a local authority context is working through your abilities to respond to your financial challenges for the year following the date of audit. So, that level of uncertainty is absolutely being felt, nationally. And then it's also things like decisions around coming back to work and what the default position is. So we as a firm have moved from, our default, which is to encourage people if they felt safe to come back into work. Now we've had to change that position to the default being work from home wherever possible. And councils are exactly the same. Yeah. Big employers and big shapers of the place of the economic activity of a city centre.
Sure. Okay. That's kind of what I expected to hear. Thank you, John. Denise.
I just wanted to really add to the point that John had made in terms of the need for training and engagement more widely in terms of the Sir Tony Redmond review. I think it would be useful even prior to the election, because the review is quite wide-reaching across the whole organisation, and we probably want to take a view in terms of some good practice measures that we would want to potentially implement, even if the review doesn't then go through to government changes. So maybe that wider discussion, but we recognise the potential change in landscape post-election, but I think it's good to start engaging not just Audit Committee, but more broadly members and officers in the organisation in terms of potential things that we may want to take forward as just good practice.
Oh, okay. So what sort of timing would you think would be a good idea, Denise?
Well, we're going to have a meeting and a wider discussion with John and colleagues, and then we'll maybe come back and make some recommendations maybe for our November meeting in terms of a potential plan.
Okay.
That works for you, Chair.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Clive.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question for John Roberts. Hi, John. Thank you for coming along. I did some research into Nottingham City Council because they also had an energy company they've recently sold. Their external auditors triggered a public interest report under the auspices of the Local Audit and Accountability Act 2014, Schedule 7. Interestingly, their auditors are somebody called Grant Thornton. Is it something that you think we should do in Bristol? Because I think there's a lot of learning that we need to get out from our governance and our expensive venture into Bristol Energy.
Well, the option to produce a public interest report is always there for auditors, absolutely, and it's a small world, isn't it? Grant Thornton is the auditor of Nottingham City and Robin Hood Energy, and I'm fully familiar with the detail that gave rise to the public interest report and the contents of that public interest report. So we are certainly keeping an open mind to it. As you know, from this committee, we included the governance and the decision making around that company as part of our risk assessment for this year, and we're evaluating the findings to stand on their own 2 feet from a Bristol perspective, but also with one eye on what the auditor did and said at Nottingham.
Okay, I mean, is it something that you would do off your own bat, or do you need audit? It is, okay, so whatever.
The auditor determines, yeah. You can do them in response to an objection where a third party member of the public and so on raises information to the auditor, but you can just as equally do it off your own bat.
Now that you've said that, John, you probably will get one.
Yeah. That's fine. I mean, I'll let the chair decide whether or not he wants the audit committee to give you a signal, but that's down to our chair. Thank you, Chair.
Not so inclined, no. Tim? Tim?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you for the report, John. It was very interesting to read. I just want to check a couple of things. Firstly, actually, interesting enough, I've been looking at the exact same paperwork as Councillor Stevens, probably on the exact same websites, and had come across the public interest report. I think it would be a very good idea, given the circumstances are nearly identical. And ironically, that we have the same auditors, that we have a public interest report as well done into that, because actually there were some quite wide findings by the auditor. It wasn't just about that specific company. There was issues about governance, etc., which would be of great deal of benefit to Bristol, since we already have other companies, some of which could have quite substantial turnovers. So I think that would be worth looking at. To come back to actually the question I wanted to ask is, how confident are you that we'll be in a position to make sure we actually do the accounts in January 2021 as per your report?
It's better. It's certainly better. We're more advanced than we've been in previous years. I can never say, it's absolutely in the bag even at this stage, because complex and unforeseen matters do come up. But this is the second year of our audit, so we know the council better than we did last year. We know the issues that we want to concentrate on better, and we made a lot of progress last year with officers in terms of some of the technical areas of the accounts and revising the way matters were presented. So we're starting from a better place than we started from in our first year as well. So it's a long-winded way of saying, yes, we think we're on track, but we can't guarantee it. Yeah.
Okay. Simon, sorry, you should have been out before Tim. I do apologise.
That's no problem, Chair. And Clive and Tim have both asked parts of the question I was going to ask around how John was thinking he would report on aspects of Bristol Energy. But John, I just wanted to know, in terms of given we are potentially near to a sale, whether your opinion will be held up until those details are clear?
The the value for money work that we're doing this year is based on the report in year 1920. So it doesn't cover the council's decision making around, the actual sale of the company. It's really around the monitoring of the situation. So I don't expect that would impact on the timing of our work, but we do take a sensitive position, and the last thing we would want to do would be an external audit would undermine the council's position in a transaction. So we have to be very careful, but equally, if there's issues there, we have a responsibility to report them. So we'll have to really work it out as we go, Simon, I think.
No, thank you, John. That's very helpful.
Okay. Anything else on that one before we move on? No. Okay. Next item up is Treasury Management. Who is presenting the report on Treasury Management today?
That's me, Councillor. So in front of you is the annual report into our Treasury Management activities for financial year 2019-20. This is part of our compliance with the Prudential Code. We report 3 times. Full council sign off the Treasury Management strategy as part of budget setting in February, and then we report on the outturn, and we do a mid-year report as well, which comes in a couple of months' time through to full council. So the report outlined sets out some of the context and background that we're operating in. It's hard to sort of think back to April 2019 when the economy was in a very different place to what it is now, and throughout that year. So there's just some background context and reminder sort of throughout 1920, before the onset of the COVID pandemic, there was significant sort of uncertainty in the markets, the worldwide markets, with sort of trade wars between America and China, and also the Brexit, and several other areas. So sort of economic growth was up and down. Interest rates were slowly beginning to increase following the sort of prolonged period of low interest rates following the 2008 financial crisis. So in terms of our long-term debt, at the end of the financial year, we ended with 461 million at an average interest rate of 4.56 across our portfolio. We increased, some of this has been reported as part of our annual accounts reporting, but you'll recall we took, during the financial year, we took out an additional 30 million of borrowing to finance our capital expenditure in line with our plan, and our Treasury Management strategy, which had identified a requirement of around 245 million over the next 5 years. That 30 million that we took out is lower than planned in slippage in the capital programme. So we are our borrowing is behind what we were planning to do because of that slippage. At the end of the financial year, we had 149 million in short-term investments, predominantly within our sort of money market funds, but also some short-term fixed loans with other public sector authorities and various banks. So just going through the report on, so that position set out at just under paragraph 10, and a breakdown of our long-term debt between the PWLB, which is the Public Works Loan Board, our primary source of borrowing, 70 million in LOBOs, which are lender option, borrower option, and some 50 million of market debt. Some of these are historic debt which we've held for a long time. So during the year, our net debt decreased by 11 million. There was additional funding of the capital programme of 35 million. As you'll see, we only borrowed cash of 30 million, so the additional 5 million was financed from internal borrowing from the reserve balance, the cash balances we hold, which further increased slightly our internal borrowing position. We don't fully, we have a strategy which makes use of our cash balance as well. We hold them to avoid longer term interest charges, and then other changes to working capital. So we, at the end of March, central government provided a lot of advance due to the impact of COVID, some advance grants. So they got the cash to us before the end of March, which is why our cash position at the end of the year did go up unexpectedly from where it was. the report sets out all the sort of the general indicators that we set, and I can confirm that during the year all our Treasury related transactions were undertaken by authorised officers and within the parameters of the strategy approved by Council. All our investments were to counterparties within our approved lending list, and we operated within all the prudential indicators set out in the appendix. I won't go through all the detail, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michael. I think I'm not sure if Ollie was indicating you wanted to speak or not. Saw your hand go up. No, you didn't. Okay. Anybody else with questions on the Treasury Management Report? Tim. Ben Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report. Could you just give us a list, or maybe you could send us a list of where the investments are made, so I can sort of see where the borrowing roughly is. But perhaps if we could have a list of, I guess, investments, probably say in excess of £1 million or some sensible figure. Obviously, we don't want to know where there's £10,000 or £20,000, but just to give us an idea of what institutions we have our investments currently with. I know we took a more cautious approach with investments after the collapse of the Icelandic banks, and I guess it's just to be reassured that that's still the case.
Yeah, so in terms of we tend to, throughout the last year, we tend to place with other councils. They're one of the best source of return when we're placing for up to a year, and we also hold money in our sort of liquid instant access accounts with our various banks. Some of the other ones we do, if we have money, hold it with central government at the debt management office, so they allow you to place money at short term with them. However, they are now starting to become negative interest rates, so there is a charge now to hold that. We don't have any anything placed with them at the moment, but we'll send you a list as at the end of the year of all our investments.
Okay, Clive.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike, for that. It's lovely to, although I'm not on the finance task and finish anymore, it's lovely to see lots of numbers. I'm on page 63, and I've also got a question on the ethical investment strategy, 65. On page 63, I remember that you guys were introducing a cap on the capital spend, such that the idea was the financing costs as a proportion of the net revenue stream. So I'm looking at the table at 23, is not more than 10%. So my first question is that still the case? You're trying to limit it for 10%, and is it only for the general fund?
So the capital strategy includes the sort of the desire that we finance a capital strategy that doesn't exceed 10%. We are still proposing that cap is maintained, but obviously
10%. Okay. And is that for HRA or just for general?
At the moment, it's across all our finance.
Okay, so let me just check my understanding. So therefore, if HRA financing costs are at 8.16%, if they and financing costs are what, 5%? You've got the interest. You've got. I know maybe it's different for HRA. But it might mean that you're limited to borrowing another 100 million or 200 million, and that affects our house building. That's my concern. And it's also for general fund, it's a little bit further away, but it also limits our capital spend. I'd like to understand, please, either now or later, how much capital, given those numbers and given 10%, we can invest before we hit the 10% cap, please.
So a couple of things. On the HRA, as part of the capital strategy, we're looking at other affordability criteria as well. So things like the interest cover ratio and how much that is. That's sort of a measure of how much your surplus can cover your fixed interest costs. Also, when you project going forward, obviously within the general fund, we make a minimum revenue contribution to paying back our debt. So it does, when you look at it over a 30-year cycle, obviously that percentage does drop. Also, as your general revenue streams go up with inflation or increases, then again, that capital financing budget and cost will go up associated. So what we have within our capital strategy is a 30-year plan and what headrooms to make sure that we maintain an affordable level of borrowing that enables us to meet what we need to invest in the city and the infrastructure, however, without causing significant financial constraints to the council over 30 years. We don't want to commit unaffordable levels of borrowing now that we'd have to impact significantly on revenue services at a later date.
Okay, that's lots of lovely words. What I'd like, please, at another time is what number of capital we can borrow on each of those two accounts before we hit the 10%. Imagine we were going to do it today. So how much more we could borrow, because that way we can see if we're limiting our house building programme.
So I think
thanks very much. I'm signing off because words won't help me on this one. It's numbers, and you don't have the numbers in front of you. No, so it's unfair. Yeah.
A technical point, if we were to increase to 10%, we'd still need to find revenue savings to fund it. So we'd still need to work out where that's funded from our budgets, because we don't have the budget to pay.
That's fair enough. I'll find you the revenue savings. I'm just interested in. That's easy if you build houses. So thank you very much. Oh yeah, no, my next one was 65. It's just a quick one. I noticed the ethical investment policy hasn't been updated since 2015. So this is right at the bottom of page 65. And my guess is that our ethics have improved a lot since then, and I think we should look to update that quite urgently.
Yes, yeah, it's in the pipeline. We've started a review of that. And
okay, and that goes through Audit Committee, yeah?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, just one last thing. Earlier on, we were talking about training for next year's Audit Committee, which is something at the front of my mind, because I know we're going to have a lot of inexperienced people next year. So no rush, but to start thinking about perhaps how you train a bunch of people who know absolutely nothing about this at all, to then, if you like, challenge you. So you got months and months, but it's something that needs to be done. Okay. Well, thank you for the report, Michael. Very good. Next, we have the SIRO assurance report. Who's presenting that one, please?
Yeah, that's me, Tim O'Gara.
Okay.
Are you happy for me to make a few introductory remarks?
Yes, fine.
All the committee have read the report. In short, the report is here to give the committee assurance around the responsibilities that would sit with me as the council's senior information risk owner, and that's the person in the council who's responsible for oversight of information risk management. The report summarises key roles and responsibilities. It identifies that there's a lot of work that has taken place over the last 12 to 18 months, and a number of key planned activities over the next 12 months or so. The report concludes with a number of points in terms of assurance that I take as the council SIRO in terms of the work that's being done within the council around this agenda. The one thing that I would say which isn't in the report but is worth mentioning is that since joining the council just under 2 years ago, we've come from a place of relative immaturity in terms of our approach to information risk management, and there's a lot of work has been done. We're on quite a journey with this agenda, but I'm satisfied that we're moving in the right direction. There's still work to be done, as the report demonstrates, but hopefully the committee can take assurance that we're on the right path with how we approach these things. We're joined in this meeting by Ben Hewkin, who I don't believe has been to this committee before. Ben is our Head of Information Assurance and also the Council Statutory Data Protection Officer. Ben or I are happy to take any questions on any of the detail in terms of what we've been doing around this agenda over the last 18 months or so. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tim. Does anybody have any questions for Tim or Ben? Adebola.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you very much, Tim, for your report. It's quite a detailed report. But I guess the question from me, and maybe it'll be good to get a sense of Audit's view on the report, because though it's labeled an assurance report, it didn't give a lot of assurance, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So it articulates a couple of actions that have been taken, very good actions. So you've created a number of roles. You give an update on the project and the things that have happened since, but it doesn't give any assurance as regards the effectiveness of those things you've put in place. So it reads a lot like an update report rather than an assurance report. And it might just be that the labeling is wrong. Again, credit to you for all you've done. But like I said, it would be good to get an understanding as to if the audit team have looked or plan to look at some of these changes that have been implemented and give an opinion at some point in time as to if the new controls are effective or otherwise, and the extent of further work, if any, that needs to be done. Thank you.
Chair, may I just respond briefly to that?
Yes, please, Tim.
So we have embedded assurance in the work that we're doing through the attendance of Alison Mullis as part of our Information Governance Board. We also have regular items on that board that where there's work being done by internal audit around this agenda. And as you'll know from your annual work programme for internal audit, there are a number of information governance, data protection type audits that are in the annual plan. I'll defer to Simba or Alison in terms of any further comments from their perspective, but certainly from my perspective, it's been really good to have that embedded assurance in terms of the work that we're doing, so that we've got that critical friend in the room as we progress this agenda.
So let's see if I'm following this, because I want to make sure I'm getting this right. So Adebola is saying that what he sees as a program of work and steps taken, all of which are good, but not an assurance. And you're saying that there is an assurance because internal audit are doing it. Is that correct? Have I got it wrong?
Yes, in summary, yes, we have embedded assurance as part of our Information Governance Board, and there is internal audit work that is done around this agenda. I'll defer to Simba and Alison to in terms of the detail around that, and they're probably better placed to provide their perspective, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. So as well as sitting on the Information Governance Board, we do a programme of audit work. So last year in our audit plan, we looked at probably half a dozen areas of information governance related issues, and we take each of those reports to the Information Governance Board, and also the Audit Committee will see the results of that work. So we did a piece around data sharing with partners. We did a piece around data security breaches, so the processes for dealing with that. Data protection impact assessments, we did a piece around that. You have a report on your agenda today around records of data processing activities. And that was all from last year's piece of work. And we work alongside and with the Information Governance Board to determine the areas that we ourselves feel that we need to provide assurance over, and also that they would like some assurance over as well. And like I say, all of those reports, the results of them will go to Audit Committee as well, and have done.
Right. So coming back to that, it seems then the answer to Adebola's question is we probably have the wrong title for this report, or we should be calling it something else. That instead of calling it an assurance report, we should perhaps call it a progress report or something along those lines. What do we think of that?
So personally, I feel that I think Tim's already mentioned that we're in a very different place than we were, say, 18 months ago. And so for me, I take the assurance around all the actions that are being taken, because there wasn't any formality around a lot of these areas prior to the council forming the Information Governance Service, or I can't remember what it's called, but that's effectively what it is, what that Ben leads. And so their activity is providing assurance that we are heading in the right direction. And I think Tim's said that actually there's more work to do, but we are heading in the right direction.
Adebola, are you happy with that one?
I am, Chair. I'm happy with the articulation of all that's happening within the third line and how close they are staying to it. So I'm happy with the work that is being done. The title of the report is less of the issue, but they've been able to describe the work that is going on in conjunction to ensure that these controls are not just, that they are also effective, in that they're being embedded and that they're effective in their operation and occurring as they should. So I am happy.
You're happy, I'm happy. Excellent.
Chairman, if I can come in there.
Simba.
Team as the SIRO needs to provide assurance that the information governance arrangements are effective. So team will need to do that. So team is answering the question that how is team as the SIRO assured that the arrangements are effective? And in my view, they are, if you look at the work that we've been giving the audit committee, there were a number of areas that were weak in this space. So the things that team has put in place should enable the arrangements to be effective. So when we do the audits next time, instead of us having limited assurance opinion, we should be able to have reasonable or substantial. So yes, team as the SIRO needs to provide the committee assurance that he is satisfied that the arrangements are effective. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Simba. Okay, I now understand. And I think the members of the committee now understand. That's good. We'll make progress. Clive.
Thank you, Tim. I'm sorry, I sort of seem to have got ahead of you, but I'll be quick. I would understand this a bit better if I were able to see, not now, and probably in exempt, some examples of security breach reports. It just helps me get my head around what the type of thing it is we're talking about, rather than completely theoretical. So I don't know, I don't need to see them all. I'm just interested in seeing some, just to understand the type of things that happen. So if you have a think about that, that'd be handy. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, may I respond very briefly to Councillor Stevens?
Yeah, can I say something first and then I'll bring you in? Is that okay? I would not want more exempt items coming to this committee if I can possibly avoid it. Every time we get one, it's trouble. And when we had the thing on the former chief executive's salary, I wasn't chair then, so I refused to look at them because the public couldn't see it. With regard to the most recent one, I was the chair. I kind of forced it. So I don't really want these things coming. But if between you and Tim, you want to sort something out, just to help you yourself, I've got no problem with that at all. Tim.
Chair, that was more or less what I was about to suggest, that myself and Ben would be more than happy to meet with Councillor Stevens and give him a little bit more background on how that particular process works.
Right, okay, thank you very much, Tim. Okay, nothing more on that. Moving on to the corporate risk register, quarter one. I take it that's Denise.
So, sorry, Tim was had a question and I jumped in. It's on the last item.
Oh, sorry, Karen.
In the blue hands, do you not see those, Chair?
I did not see your hands. I'm very sorry.
I don't use those anymore. I apologise. That's my fault. I mean,
this was a rush job today, and I didn't get them.
No, that's okay. I'll stop using the blue hand. I'll just wave at you like this.
Yeah, just wave furiously. That'll do.
Okay, thanks, and thanks for this report. And it is quite complex in places. I guess my focus is probably on the area I've got a little bit more experience of, which is around the GDPR and perhaps some assurances that lessons are learnt from GDPR breaches. As I'm sure Mr. O'Gara recalls, I reported a fairly serious one to him 11 months ago. And I've got to say, as someone who reported that breach, I never really received a satisfactory follow-up to show how lessons were being learnt or what the final outcome of that was. There was some communication, but I just feel that if we're to provide assurance around this, we need to complete the loop. And there's one, except there will always be mistakes made. I mean, that's human nature, and I think the breach was a human error one. But I think what we need to do is also be reassured then that the loop is completed and that we are learning lessons from that and reducing down risk. And I'd say at this point, I personally don't feel completely assured of that, but I hope I will be in future. I think following up what Clive asked for, what might be of use, rather than seeing individual cases, might be a table showing totality of cases and maybe weighting them in, you know, because someone could accidentally copy someone in on an email they shouldn't have done. I certainly know I've done that on occasion, right up to exporting major elements of quite important data to third parties who shouldn't have received it. And I think maybe if we could just have an idea, and then of course there's the attacks on the authority through phishing emails and cyber attacks, an idea of perhaps the level of risk and how many cases we have to deal with maybe annually. That could be quite useful for us just to get our heads around.
Chair, just to respond briefly to Councillor Kent, we've done a lot of work around the GDPR agenda. I don't want to talk about an individual case in this meeting, but Ben and I again would be happy to follow up with you on some of the points that you've raised, and we need to be careful about data and what comes to a public forum, because a lot of the sort of the attacks we get are quite serious. But more than happy to have a separate session with you, Councillor Kent, with myself and our Statutory Data Protection Officer. And I'm not sure if, Ben, you've got anything that you wanted to add to what Councillor Kent has just said.
No, so yeah, thank you for your comments, Councillor Kent. I think just to address it in short, we are tracking those sorts of lessons learned. So we are following up with the relevant service areas that are involved in those sorts of breaches and working with them to improve processes to try and avoid those sorts of things from happening again in future where possible. But like you said, unfortunately, some of them are human error, and there are only certain things we can do to kind of limit that. Just very briefly, in terms of the kind of the metrics, as Tim said, more than happy to have a session with you to go through those. We are capturing those sorts of metrics already. So yeah, I'm more than happy to talk you through those.
Okay, that's very helpful, Ben. I mean, my take on this is that we can learn lessons, and we can amend or change or introduce systems that help to reduce the number of GDPR breaches. We will never get rid of them. We can reduce them. We can reduce, but as Tim said, with sending the wrong email to the wrong person because you type in the first letter and then somebody different comes up or whatever it is, they'll never be zero, but obviously our aim is to have as few as possible. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
May I add one thing to what you've just said, because I think the key thing for us is that recognizing that there will always be human error around data breaches, is to make sure that we don't take our eye off constantly learning lessons, ensuring that training has been completed. Those are the sorts of things that when things are reported to the Information Commissioner's Office, they will be the first things that they come and look to see if we've done. And that's the important assurance that we need as officers, and you need as councillors, that we are continually doing those things.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing for me. And we can't avoid the breaches, but we can certainly do everything that we can to try and mitigate them.
Yeah, continuous improvement. Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Right. Corporate risk, Q1. That will be Denise, perhaps.
It's Jan Cadby, who has just joined us to present her report, Chair.
Hi, Jan.
Good afternoon.
Oh, there you are. people move around on these screens. Yeah, okay. Hi, Jan. Yes, the floor is yours.
Okay, so you will have all received the report. So just briefly going through that, the Q1 risk report is a summary of the critical threats and significant opportunities as at July 2020. So the Cabinet received the report on the 1st of September.
Can I interrupt you a minute, Jan?
Yes, certainly.
Right, the power's running out on my computer. I've got to go and get a lead. So keep going till I get back, or if you finish before I get back, Clive will start taking the questions. See you in a moment.
Will do. So as I said, the Cabinet report was received on the 1st of September. There's two critical threat risks which were scoring 28 in Q1, which was the failure to deliver enough affordable homes to meet the city needs, and the financial framework and the medium-term financial plan. You can find both of those risks on page 9 for the failure to deliver enough affordable homes to meet the city needs, and on page 17, the financial framework and the medium-term financial plan. In this quarter, we also received quite a few new risks, and these included the organisational resilience risk, which scored 21, a high risk, homelessness, which is CR37, which was a high risk, corporate equalities, CR34, high, SEND, CR36, which was a medium risk. And also we had CR23, which was previously the Better Lives risk, which is now the Adult and Social Care Transformation Programme, which was a medium risk. The two deteriorating key risks were the failure to deliver enough affordable homes to meet the city needs, and also business continuity and the council's resilience. The business continuity and council resilience deterioration was very much part of the COVID recovery and the additional works that need to be put in place around that, and the refreshed work that the team are working on. If you do wish to explore any of the risks in details, this can be arranged with the other risk owners. So if you have any comments for this quarter.
So Tim he's got his hand up. Tim.
Okay, well, first off, I'll start with the bits I like. I'm glad you've removed the risk of the spatial plan not proceeding, since it failed quite a while ago. So that's good to see that's been updated. I'm also pleased to see SEND has actually now been added to the corporate risk register. It's taken a bit of bleating for that to happen, and I'm very pleased to see that's happened. Going through this, I mean, one thing I was going to comment, and I'm afraid it is one of my bugbears, it's going to be SEND, is I noticed that a risk of delivery, it refers to, this is page 19, everybody, bottom of page 19, bottom left-hand corner, just to help people out. It refers to a risk of failure to deliver the written statement of action, and a key potential cause of that being a judicial review or similar legal action causing attention to be diverted from the BAU. So I suspect this has been lifted from another document, but just to point out, there's no description of what the BAU is, as far as I can tell, within the document. Secondly, it seems a bit perverse that we're blaming the judicial review and not the illegal action by the council, which would have caused the judicial review. Surely the cause, we shouldn't blame the victims. We should blame those who basically were the perpetrators, which would be the council failing to follow the law, which would allow a judicial review. Just a thought for us to perhaps take away.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Business as usual is the BAU, but I'll pick that up in terms of going forwards. And I'll also take back your note with regard to your comment on the judicial review for Hugh Evans.
Thank you. I've now learnt a new local government acronym, business as usual, BAU. Thank you very much. I will add that to my list of hundreds of others I've had to learn over the last 15 years or whatever.
PLAs. Yeah. Clive, do you have questions about TLAs?
Not specifically. Now, Jan Cadby said that we can take these up with or should take these up with the appropriate directors. The affordable, I want to try and get clear the difference between 18, which is building houses and used to include affordable housing, and 32, which is just affordable housing, because the two go together quite a lot, as does 37, which is homelessness, because if we don't have enough affordable housing, we cause homelessness. It's one of the causes. And I think there are other causes into the affordable housing, like we've got the new planning white paper ideas and the system, potentially even a borrowing cap, and duty to cooperate disappearing. And there's strains, big strains in all the WECA local authorities with that quantity of housing. So I think understanding how those interplay is really important. And Jan, it's not fair to ask you now, but I think the route is me and a few others, if necessary, need to really dig down deep into understanding this, especially as, you know, you've got rate ranked as 28. That's just nearly as high as you can get, I think. It's not as high as you can get for affordable housing. And it's absolutely key for the future. So I'm not making a political point of it. It's just utterly key. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Anything else on the corporate risk register?
I think Councillor Mead has his hand up, yeah.
Ali.
Thank you, Chair. Last time I was trying to readjust the camera thing to double check someone's name because I'd forgotten their name on the thing, but this time I was waving subtly. But as I'm really pleased that SEND has made it onto the corporate risk register. But I did find a while back, and it was quite some time ago now, I covered for a friend on oh gosh, what's it called now? People scrutiny. And I really do think that it would be good to get Jan to meet up with, say, the chair of that committee and just double check that there aren't things that should be on the corporate risk register that are currently hiding in their risk register. Because I mean, SEND, for example, it's come up on here, but it's come up on here as a medium risk. But the kind of issues that people are going through as SEND are certainly in their lives not medium risk at all. And there's a danger that some things will end up being regarded as a medium risk and not get the kind of priority that they need. So I really do think it would be useful to just double check that their risk register is feeding things into the corporate risk register that need a bit more attention, because that did strike me as quite concerning at the time. Not overly concerning, but just concerning enough to flag it up. I do stress that I don't have much of a background on people scrutiny, but it did seem quite odd that something that on any other committee I've served on would have flagged up some alarm bells seemed to be classed as medium risk.
Okay. You okay with that one, John?
Yes, so the SEND risk came on in July 2020, and it came up through the service risk registers, through the Directorate Risk Report, and the Directorate Risk Report will be received in October at the People Scrutiny, and it will have the SEND risk on there.
Okay. Are you happy with that, Ollie? He's fairly happy with that.
Happy enough, Chair.
By his facial expression. Simon had his hand up. So, no, you didn't. Okay, in that case, nothing more on the Q1 report. No. Okay.
Chair, I see Liz Bradford returned, which is great, and she's got waving her hands as well.
Oh, I can't see it. Wave your hand again, Liz. Okay, yeah. You see it now. All right, sorry,
Apologies.
Liz.
No, that's fine. I just had a quick question on the timeliness of the report. So for Q1, we're looking at April, May, June, which we are seeing at the end of September, where actually the next report is pretty much ready, or should be ready next month to be prepared. We don't see that report then until January. So if there was any particular issues, I'm not quite sure when Cabinet would see that. But is there any way of bringing these reports any earlier in our work programme, or does that not fit in with their preparation?
So the reports follow Cabinet. So we go to Cabinet first and then we follow with the Audit Committee. But this is something we can have a discussion with Simba.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Right, moving right along. The Risk Management Annual Report and Improvement Plan. Who's leading on that one, please?
That'll be me as well.
Oh.
Okay, so the Risk Management Annual Report, it highlights the progress we made in the last year and the future plan to improve the risk management arrangements. So we've strengthened the team resource, we've provided guidance, training and workshops, we've improved the accessibility to the service risk registers, and we have provided regular reporting on risk. We've also significantly increased the levels of engagement, but we recognise we need to do more work around that. We've had significant leadership support in the design and delivery of the risk management plan. And our focus this year is very much around increasing the levels of engagement and the ownership of risk, the completion of the service risk registers as part of the service planning, raising awareness through e-learning and the training, working with the other complementary functions to further manage risk, introducing a self-assessment to enable the reporting on the maturity of risk within Bristol City Council, and also the implementation of a risk management system. So the risk management plan is a journey towards the better management of risk, and significant progress has been made. We recognise that we do need to do a lot more, and the risk management plan, which is Appendix A of the report, is setting out our ambitions for the year. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to have a look at the plan, and I'd welcome any of your comments.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Jan? Clive?
I'd like to agree. I think we are getting better at managing our risks. So well done to all officers involved there. I think we're not top of our game yet. It's getting better, and I think our group and other scrutiny should keep on top and asking questions and challenging. But very good. It's a huge step forward from, say, 2 years ago. So well done, anyone who deserves well done.
I'd agree with that. I think Tim and possibly Chris, did you have your hand up, or were you messing with your screen?
Thanks, Chair. Can I just double check the risk management plan, which was referred to as Appendix A, because I don't seem to have an Appendix A. Is that the graphical chart? And
it is, yes.
Right, that's fine. I've got it then. Otherwise, I can say I haven't read it because I haven't got it. But no, I have got it. Thank you.
Chris, did you have a point, or you were?
No, I was messing with my screen, Chair.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay. Anything more on that? Well, thank you, Jan. And moving right along, the internal audit activity report, which I suspect is Simba.
Yes, Chairman. Good afternoon, all. This activity report is for the work that we did from 1st of April to 31st of August. I'll take the report as read, but I would want to highlight a few points, if I could, Chairman.
Okay.
The committee will be aware that we came to in July and advised you that the internal audit work was suspended for Q1, just to focus on a few things from 1920, but also to give management the opportunity to respond effectively, which meant that we had to bring that revised audit plan, which we approved in May. I would also want to say that in May, we introduced the rolling plan, where we made a commitment to revise the audit plan in talking to management and the audit committee each quarter, so that whatever is on the plan remains relevant, taking into account the emerging risks and other developments. So the progress in relation to the work that we did in Q2, recognizing that the work started in July, is in Appendix 1, and you notice that most of the items are recorded as in progress because they've just had a very, very short space of time to do the work and the reporting. So consistent with the rolling plan methodology, we have engaged management and CLB, and we have again looked at the audit report, the audit plan. And within Appendix 2, you will see that we have highlighted the audits that we will be focusing in Q3. We'll come back again in probably in November, and then again agree with you the work that we do in Q4. Within the report, I just want to wish to draw the attention of the audit committee to the COVID assurance work that we did. So as internal audit, we worked with management and we reviewed the arrangement the council had in responding to COVID. The work done and the outcomes are well detailed within that within the activity report. But what is interesting is that the agreed actions are being taken forward, and I'm happy with the prioritization. Counter fraud, I think, is self-explanatory, but we did a lot of work, a lot of post and prepayment checks to support, just to ensure that any potential fraudulent applications on the business support were identified and dealt with. In relation to whistleblowing, we reported in full when we came in July, but there's going to be a counter fraud half-year report that we are going to present to the audit committee in November. In that report, we will provide details around the improvements we've made, as well as any outstanding items. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, I would like to highlight a few service development that audit committee needs to know that are in train within the team. We have successfully implemented a new audit management software called Pentana Audit. So hopefully we'll become a bit effective, and our data retention recording will improve as well. But most importantly, we are using that software. We have a module within Pentana Audit, which can help us to automate the process for following up agreed actions. And we hope that when we go live, we'll be able to come and do a live demonstration for the committee. I'm hopeful that the automation of those actions will help both management and internal audit to report and monitor actions effectively. We spoke to you about establishing a regional fraud hub. That work is progressing. We have had 2 demonstrations, and we are starting to have engagement with our neighboring councils just to see how we can take that forward. You will remember, I want to remind you that in November last year, we brought an internal audit strategy which was approved by the audit committee. Within that strategy, we made reference to appointing a strategic partner. We are now in the process of procuring a strategic partner. We hope that the contract will go live in December. The main objective of bringing a strategic partner is to ensure that we build resilience in the team and address some of the capacity and skills issues that we have faced. We recognize that the council is still faced with the dilemma of responding to the virus as well as recovery planning. And we know that because of the uncertainty and the council is involved in many priorities, audit resources need to be targeted. Any audit assurance that will be required in relation to COVID will be prioritized. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to stop here to take questions before we go to the next part, which deals with the audit committee summaries, if that is acceptable.
Okay, thank you. And I certainly would welcome our chance to have a look at your new software and see how it works. That sounds like it's fascinating. Questions or comments? Ollie.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. Lovely news that we'll be hearing more about it in November about the whistleblowing thing, because that was the bit I'd flagged up on my notes about this particular report. It seems that we've been sort of addressing whistleblowing or looking into it for quite some time, because I remember it coming up when Jos Clark was chair about 3 years ago. So it would be quite nice to feel that we've sort of completed the work on that by the time I leave office in May, because that would have taken only 4 years or so to really get to grips with a decent whistleblowing program. But it'll be good to see what progress has been made on it in November.
Okay, thank you, Ollie.
Chairman, if I can help, you will remember that in July, when we brought the annual opinion, we listed and gave an update on all actions that we had previously told you that we were going to implement, and most of them had been implemented. So I'm happy that the progress and what we promised the audit committee, most of actions has been implemented. But yes, we'll bring another detailed report.
Okay, look forward to that. Tim.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, thanks for the report. Actually, I wasn't going to follow up, but the whistleblowing bit brought something to my mind, and that is, does our whistleblowing policy cover our external companies? And if it does, do all the staff of those companies know how to engage in whistleblowing if they were to find themselves in a position where they felt they needed to?
I think I know the answer to that one, but Simba, it's all yours.
The companies have got their own arrangements.
That was it. So,
sorry, are we satisfied with that? If quite often, let's be honest, if there's a whistleblowing in what are quite small companies, it's more likely to be aimed at management of those companies. Do we not think that actually they should have the opportunity to whistleblow direct to us as the owner, the council, or not?
The companies are secret. The companies are separate legal entities, and therefore we can't be involved in that. That has to be their doing. Now, the council can ask the companies whether what whistleblowing policies they have. That's a different thing, but it's not a matter for this audit committee. It's a matter for their own audit committees.
Can I just add to that, if that's okay, Councillor Brain? So I do agree it is a matter for their own audit committee, but staff and other interested parties do also have the ability to, via our own channels, bring any matter to the shareholder attention attributed to the companies as well.
Okay.
Sorry, so just to clarify, you've said that they can use our whistleblowing process.
They can, to bring matters to us in terms of if there is a concern in terms of shareholding that is appropriate for the shareholder, it can be brought to our attention.
Okay,
There's a range of different mechanisms by which they can do that, but they can actually, they can email, they can actually formally make representation and bring things to our attention.
I think what Denise is saying, they can't come to us as an employer because we're not their employer. They can come to the council as a shareholder, as in a way any private company would, I suppose.
Well, I think that goes back to my initial question. I thought that was fairly obvious that we own the companies. It is public money invested in those companies. And if someone was unhappy with maybe what they were seeing and did not feel assured that reporting internally within the companies would resolve it, I would have thought as owners, we would want them to feel that they could approach us. And I would have thought the whistleblowing process would be the best route to do that. But maybe not. I mean, I think it seems a little unclear to me, and it's unclear to me. How can we be sure it's clear to maybe the employees of those companies?
Can I? Okay. Can I'll attempt? I'll attempt to.
I don't need to say things. It's similar. Perhaps you have a go.
I'll just attempt to respond to this. I think the whistleblowing policy is meant to protect the employees. Okay, yeah. So it has to go through their own channels. Okay, but the council have got a lot of other mechanisms, including fraud referrals, where everyone can raise a matter at the council. But when it comes to protection, the whistleblowing is meant to protect the employees. So I think they know that, and what probably we could commit to do, which is probably through the companies themselves, actually to ensure that their employees are aware. But it's a matter for the company to ensure that they have got sufficient arrangements, and whistleblowing is meant for protecting the employees for that individual company. It wouldn't be right to give the council to give those whistleblowing protection to an employee for another legal entity. But in terms of raising the matters, there are many other avenues. What probably we need to ensure that those avenues are known, and I think we can commit to ensure that those avenues are known.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, so that was all. That was, oh, we nearly got there. Clive.
Sorry. And it's actually on whistleblowing, and it's really encouraging that we've all picking these things up. I'm conscious at 5.8 that's really difficult to decide whether it's complaint, a grievance, or whistleblowing, and I'd like sort of almost like best practice put into that. There must be some local government guidance, must be union guidance on that, because it's really important. And as you say, Simba, essentially we're here to protect the employee, the potential whistleblower. So we need to be a little bit dangerous, and that does leave a bit of gaps for other things to happen. So it happens up and down the country and probably overseas, but let's limit it to the UK. So how are you going about deciding what you've written in 5.8, which is what constitutes whistleblowing?
So I think this is probably I think there's a policy, there's a whistleblowing policy, okay, which defines what a whistleblowing is. And what you find in most of the cases that there is an entanglement between a whistleblowing case and a grievance. So in most of the time that in most of the cases for employees, it starts as a grievance, yeah, or normally it's between a grievance and a whistleblowing case. But most of the time that once we determine that it's a grievance, looking at the policy, then we can advise the employee that this is a grievance, this is the way to follow. But in some cases, you've got situations where it's both a grievance and there are some elements that are being raised that probably amount to whistleblowing. So I think we have to apply judgment to that. But I think the difficulty that you get is that at times, people think that it's a whistleblowing when it's just a fraud referral, where someone just referring a fraud, not even requiring any protection because they don't have an interest in the case. But most of the time, you find that someone would have an interest in the case and it's a grievance. So who said to the individual, this is a grievance, you might need to do it 1, 2, 3. Or in some cases say, yes, we accept this is purely a whistleblowing case. But those two things are normally entangled. So yeah, it's a challenge, but we try to follow the policy because the policy is very clear in terms of what is a whistleblowing case and what is grievance. And there's very, very limited room for any discretion. You have to apply the policy.
Okay, thanks, Simba. I believe Adebola had his hand up.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Simba, for your report. I see that you're implementing 6x6, which is very good. That way you're able to think about the risks, current risks that they apply to the council and adapt your plan accordingly. Looking at the amendment you propose on page 125, I see you've done just that. You know, there are a couple of topics there that are pertinent at the moment, that are relevant now. There's COVID-19, you've covered health and safety, there's information security. But based on my experience and work elsewhere, a big topic now is Brexit and organizational readiness for that or preparedness for that. That seems to be missing from your list, whether this one or on the appendix. Are you please able to talk us through why you haven't considered that as something to look at or consider? Because the risks are vast. There are financial, human, there are different dimensions to it. So why you haven't considered that, or is there any mitigation or activity going on elsewhere that is alternative assurance as to the council's readiness for Brexit? I hope that made sense. That's my question.
I think it does make sense, but I think we've considered that, and I know that there's a Brexit board which meets weekly, and I also sit on the Recovery and Overview Coordination Board, which is also receiving some reports on some updates on what's happening within the Brexit group. And I think we recognize that those issues are being managed across the council. And there's also an issue here around, if you look at some of the work that we have done under COVID-19, things like supplier resilience, the issue to do with procurement, I am conscious in terms of some of the work that we can do. So I am assured a bit by the work that's being done by the Brexit group, but there's an opportunity for us to do some work. But given where we are with the audit plan in terms of the resources available and the space that we have to complete the plan, we are focusing more on those items where we inform the annual opinion and also taking assurance from as other sources as possible. So at the moment, I think there's sufficient reporting and oversight, but it's one on the watch. If probably we get something different, if we get to end of October and there's a different turn, obviously we might then need to get into another conversation. But at the moment, that isn't why I haven't prioritized it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You happy with that, Adebola?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was part one of your report, Simba. I believe there was a second part you wanted to speak on.
Yes, Chairman. So you remember that when I presented the annual opinion report, I advised you that there were several audit reports from 2019-20 that had limited assurance opinion, and we would bring those summaries to the Audit Committee in this meeting. So Appendix 4 of my report, yes, those management summaries. And what we have done is that we have asked the responsible senior officers to attend the committee. So my proposal, Mr. Chairman, is that we will take those reports as read, and then when the senior responsible officer comes in, you give them the opportunity to update you on what they've done in terms of implementing the agreed actions and any other updates without necessarily going through each of the reports. I think there are 5 of them that needs to be done. We have already looked at risk management, so I'm not sure who is next, but that's my proposal, Chairman.
That sounds like a very good proposal to me. I'm sure members will be very happy to hear that. In terms of timing, do you think we will be able to take all 5 at once, or do we need to do them in batches?
No, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think what we do is we do one by one. So we bring in somebody, dispense with their item, then bring someone. I think that's probably better. Sure.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is, do we want to bring 5 of them in November? One after
They're here. They're already here.
They're already here now.
Yeah. So we would 5. So if you look at my report, there are 5 reports that need to be considered today. Okay. And I think the senior officers are around, so I think they are aware that they need to attend. I'm not sure who's in the waiting room now.
Simba, they're in the meeting now. They're just not got their video on, so you can't see them, but you'll see the names. So the senior officers are actually here in the meeting now.
Okay. I have limited access to paperwork. Perhaps, Simba, you could introduce them one by one.
So, okay, let me see. I can't see who's available now. Okay, can we? The top one is commercialization, isn't it? Commercialization. I can't see.
No. Okay.
Jacqueline Miller is around. So we can start with commercialization.
Gavin Miller.
Jacqueline Miller is around.
I do beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Oh, she was there. There she is. Right. Okay. Right, Jacqueline.
Hello.
Hello.
So if I give an outline, Simba, correct me if I'm going on the wrong path, but we worked quite closely with Audit earlier this year to review what is still a relatively new function of commercialisation. And my area in specific terms is commercialisation development. So I believe you have in front of you the executive summary that Simba and Alison have created. There were a number of issues identified around the robustness of our approach. So in response to the findings highlighted by our colleagues in Audit, we've prepared a revised commercialisation strategy, we've developed, in partnership with the Commercialisation and Innovation Working Group, an action plan and a programme of commercialisation projects, micro, medium and major projects. We're still in fairly early stages in terms of embedding commercialisation methodology within business planning, as Stephen Peacock has highlighted in his comments on the report. And a number of actions followed, one of which was an assessment criteria for us to be able to screen new and emerging opportunities and innovations that arise in somewhat unplanned ways, to be able to scrutinise and shortlist those opportunities in partnership at the moment with the Commercialisation Innovation Working Group, to help us assess which opportunities we ought to pursue and which we shouldn't. We've got similar criteria for grant funding applications and potentially contract bids, although we haven't submitted any of those yet. Councillor Stevens is on the Commercialisation Innovation Working Group. Was there anything you wanted to say, Clive?
I'm trying to remain open-minded about these changes. In my experience, a long time ago, when in big business and trying to almost be entrepreneurial, having audits bring you within the organisation is a kiss of death. But I'm willing to listen and learn, and if you can prove it otherwise, then I'm very happy to have my view changed. Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions for anybody else? I see no hands waving around. So, for the sake of clarity, so when will we be free then of this limited assurance with regard to this area of activity?
My proposal is that we continue to review progress and work with our colleagues in audit to ensure that they're satisfied with the methodology and also the performance from here on in. So it's very much, you know, a moving kind of opportunity in relation to commercialisation, especially post-COVID. So it is very much ensuring that we've got consistency and a standardised approach from which we can genuinely review our performance.
Simba, how do you feel about that? Because this doesn't sound like the kind of definite proposals that we would normally expect. Most parts of the organisation come to us and don't present like this. But I understand that commercialisation is a slightly different area. So I'd be interested to hear your comment on that.
So I think I think clearly the report is very, very clear in terms of the action that are required. There are a lot of strategic points that are being raised, and there's a lot of a big body of work that needs to be done. So as far as audit is concerned, this will be subject to a follow-up audit, which we will do a detailed review of the area and then provide an opinion on this work. But we need to recognize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to take this to the level that it has to get to.
Okay. And Jackie, you accept that there's a lot of work needs to be done?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to embed commercialisation and that methodology and see some genuine movement. As I said, we've already drafted a revised strategy in response to the audit and an action plan, and we've got a kind of ongoing programme of emerging projects. And I think it will always need to be quite a dynamic framework to enable us to exploit opportunities as they arise.
Yeah, sure. Okay, anybody else got any comments or questions before we move on to the next one? No, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's the next one up?
Yeah, so the next one is trading schools, and Alison Haley, the service director, is in, and I think the head of service is in as well. And the key messages are on page 138. So if you can't see, it's page 138, which identifies the risk, the findings to this to the report, and then the management comments as well. So Alison, it's over to you.
Thanks, Simba. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Alison Hurley. I'm the Director for Education and Skills. Originally, Trading with Schools sat in commercialisation and actually transferred to Education and Schools last week. So I am going to be reliant on Ali Mannering, our Head of Service for Trading with Schools, to pick up response to the audit, but we can field any questions together. So Ali, can I hand over to you?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Ali Mannering, Head of Trading with Schools. The audit was undertaken at the beginning of this year, and the report was finalised with the management actions in May, and it was really helpful. The key findings were identified, or audit opinion was that there was substantial assurance obtained regarding Trading with Schools operations based on the completion of fieldwork. However, there was limited assurance opinion regarding the robustness for commercialisation arrangements. So the key findings identified during the review, no clear and transparent remit for Trading with Schools established by the council, so it was difficult for Trading with Schools to prepare robustly for commercialisation. A commercialisation business model and operating plan had not been established, and appropriate key performance indicators for commercial activity had not been established. And the initial proposal from Cabinet in 2012 was to establish a traded entity for schools, and phase 1 would be an in-house traded entity, and phase 2 was to consider whether there should be an alternative operating model in the future. Basically, phase 2 has not been pursued to date. So Trading with Schools has operated since 2013 and has focused on service delivery, delivering high quality services, customer retention, and the pursuit of financial and social targets. What it's not done, as the report helpfully outlined, is focused on looking at an alternative service model. So the management response and actions were to look at the original Cabinet report to evaluate the feasibility of the recommendations for a phase 2 within the current landscape, to undertake a review of key performance indicators, and to work with colleagues in the wider commercialisation directorate to look at the development of best practice and marketing strategy. So as Alison said, Trading with Schools has moved from commercialisation back to Education and Skills Directorate. And what has happened is I have had the opportunity to talk to Alison very, very briefly about the plans that have been I've been kind of formulating in the background, but it really is an early stage. So the aim is that short, medium and long-term plan. In the short term, it's around looking at devising a plan to undertake that full review. And in line with the timelines outlined in the report, I would intend to have that by December of this year, but that would be an outline to look at a quite a large and significant review, which would be an options appraisal of alternative models of delivery, looking at what other providers, both local authorities and alternative providers, how they operate, and bearing in mind that we are always looking at sustaining strategic partnerships with schools and delivering the council's objectives as well. So it's always that balance. COVID has caused severe disruption, business as usual. So I would have hoped to have been further on than I am. Really, it will be about looking at undertaking this review work so that when we come out into the new normal, we are in a really strong position to be able to undertake any findings, recommendations that come out of this review. And that, I think, is really where we are at the moment.
Okay. So same question as I had for Jacqueline. When can we expect to move out of limited assurance? When will Simba not be telling us that this is an issue? I'm not asking Simba, by the way. I'm asking Alison or Ali.
Okay.
I think so. At the moment, I think the deep dive is going to really take place over the autumn term, so we should have the outcome of that from December. So I would look to see us coming out of the current status by early New Year.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a definite answer. I'm happy with that. Tim.
Thank you, Chair. Reading the report, given that its robustness for commercialisation, and we're 8 years on from when originally Trading with Schools was told to prepare for commercialisation, do we actually, Alison, do you actually think progressing with commercialisation is a good idea, given that many local authorities are now years ahead of us in the market? And actually, would we perhaps be better off just concentrating on delivering those services, which clearly Trading with Schools have done, rather than the risks of commercialisation?
Yeah, I think the commercial model can still be developed. So I completely agree. The continuity of services to schools through the traded model is really critical for us, and really it's such an important thing for the city, because it enhances what we're able to deliver from a statutory perspective. So I do want to explore the commercialisation model, but without losing any continuity to the services that we've already got. What we need to see is, particularly post-COVID, whether or not those services are sustainable, and whether or not the kind of breadth of the current service model is what schools require going forwards, given the new world that we're working in, and then how commercial that model can be. So that's the exploratory work that will be happening over the next 3 months that will really position us with regard to that commercial model from January. So we should have clarity from that.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you for that question, Tim. Very appropriate. Okay. Okay then. If nobody else has any more questions for Alison and Ali, we'll move on to number 3.
Chairman, number 3 is appointment of interims and consultants, and the head of HR is here. Mark Williams will give you the context and what they are doing to address the issues.
Okay. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you again. So yeah, this report, you'll see the report gave a limited assurance in terms of the controls at the time of the audit. I'm pleased to be able to tell the committee that in terms of the actions that were recommended from the report, those have now been implemented. So in terms of the controls that we've put in place, there is a requirement for all assignments that are 6 months or longer to be signed off by the relevant director. So that's both contracts of more than 6 months and anywhere where there's an extension, the length of tenure goes beyond 6 months. Where the charge rate to the council is more than £500 a day, after 6 months, each case has to now be approved by the chief executive. So in terms of controls, we've put a lot more stringent set of arrangements in place. The other point I'd make is the guidance we issue to managers in relation to, we have a managed service supplier for all our agency staff and interims, and that is our current supplier. Arrangements for going off contract, we've now issued very clear guidance that it must always be through our existing supplier, and if it's to go off contract, it has to go through our procurement team and HR before it can go anywhere else. And also we've provided much clearer advice on the arrangements when a colleague leaves the organisation. So in response to the question around if Simba and his team were to review the arrangements that have now been put in place, I would hope that they would reach a conclusion that the arrangements are much better and much more strengthened. So I hope that's providing a degree of assurance, but obviously proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and it would require them to check that those procedures are being followed. But I can assure you that we've already responded to those recommendations and fresh guidance has been issued. Thank you.
Okay, well, if I was to ask you the same question I asked the last 2 officers, your answer would be, well, we've already done it.
Yeah, it would be, yes.
Yeah, okay. Simba, is there any reason at all why the Audit Committee can't be happy with that? It sounds pretty good to me.
I think the action might have been done, but I think the issue is about compliance is ensuring that what the actions or the new controls in place are actually being adhered to. I think that's the most important thing. If those actions are being complied with and actions being taken, then that will be okay.
Okay, so it's a question of monitoring, I guess. Now they have the systems are there. Now it's just a question of monitoring.
Agreed.
Okay, Tim.
Thanks. So to follow that up, what happens if someone does not comply?
Well, that will, if someone doesn't comply, then that will be escalated to the relevant director, executive director, or chief executive.
Yeah, I mean, presumably, I mean, we now have this, we now have the systems in place, and it's people's jobs to follow those rules as this is their daily work. And if they didn't, then you do what you do in any circumstance when the employee doesn't do what they're meant to do.
Indeed, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mark. That sounds like that's pretty concise and understandable.
Thank you.
Okay. So next up, number 4. What would that be, Simba?
So we have looked at risk management, so we don't go there. So the next item is records of data processing activities. Ben, the head of information governance, is here to talk you through this report. Ben, if you could give the context and then the action that you are taking over.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Back again. So as you can see from the report, there was a number of both positive and areas that required improvement. So I'll just very quickly go through those, mainly around ownership of the record of processing agreements, around the information asset owners, who they are, do they know their roles and responsibilities, and kind of a system in place to monitor and review those. So in terms of kind of my response from a management actions perspective, a number of things have taken place and are going to take place, which I'm obviously going to be working with Alison and Simba to review the effectiveness of. We are looking to do what we're phasing as a GDPR phase 2 project that will capture findings from this report and any other audit reports that have in relation to GDPR or data protection as a kind of a catch-all. But that will also address things like information asset owner training. So identifying those, which we've now done. My team have a list of who the information asset owners are, and we are currently rolling out a training plan to them to bring them up to speed on what their responsibilities are to do that role. In terms of monitoring, we are looking at an information governance system or a tool that will enable us to more effectively manage these record of processing arrangements or agreements, rather than the current process, which is SharePoint, which is a bit disparate, shall we say, in terms of oversight and relies on the individual service areas updating them and uploading them to the SharePoint site. Whereas the tool we're looking at will give me and my team a clearer view and more ability to kind of respond to any questions and view these in a more detailed manner. Open to any questions.
Okay. So I mean, the same question I've asked the previous officers. When do you think this you will have completed this process?
So in terms of so it's all tied up in the phase 2 project, which the mandate is going through the relevant approvals process at the moment. So it's going to the relevant EDMs and CLBs over the coming weeks. I don't believe it's going to be a short project, but in terms of the record of processing agreements, I'd welcome a review from obviously Alison and Simba's team towards the Q1, Q2 of next year.
Okay, so yeah, we're talking about spring next year, probably then. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. Does anybody have any questions? Are we all happy? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ben. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and Simba, who is last but not least?
Adult social care debt, David Tully is here to talk you through. David, if you could give the context and the summary of the findings and what you are doing in terms of dealing with the issues identified. Thank you.
Yes, I'm David Toole. I'm a contracts and quality manager in adult care, and one of my responsibilities is the client and carer financial services team. And I mean, they are the team that assess individuals who are receiving care and support services commissioned by adult care. So there's a bit of context, really. I mean, you know, adult care charging and is a complex area. I mean, obviously the people we're working with are vulnerable and can have some quite complex needs, and we are in under the Care Act legislation, which, you know, does actually state that people's ability to sort of pay their charging can't be taken into account when we're assessing them. So we're always slightly on the back foot, because services have to continue regardless. But I mean, you'll see from the audit report that there was some limited assurance around sort of recovery. And I mean, that's obviously the focus of our actions. I mean, our actions probably can fit into three sort of categories: sort of resources, early intervention and prevention, and systems. So resource-wise, our director agreed to fund quite a significant number of posts. So we have 4 permanent and 2 fixed-term posts, which have either started, are in the recruitment process, or sort of being recruited to. So I mean, we hope to have a team up and running. I mean, certainly the 1st of November we'll have at least half that team working. So I mean, what we want that team to do now is obviously move from previous debt management projects in adult care. We probably focus too much on the very old debt. So this is debts that last, you know, been around for many months, if not years, and therefore it ended up with quite a lot of money being written off, whereas now we much want to focus on early intervention, and then it moves into sort of prevention work. So early intervention is really getting in at the 30-day mark, really getting early to support people. Most of our debts accrue because vulnerable people need extra support. And there are many ways we can do that. It's whether it's supporting someone with a standing order direct debit, or, you know, helping people get powers of attorney, or I mean, it starts with social workers explaining the whole process to people really early on. So that's our focus now, really taking it back to that early stage. And then probably the last sort of part is our sort of systems and processes approach, which is you know, working with our corporate colleagues around, you know, making our invoices better so that it's easier for people to understand, having systems that talk together so we've got the correct details for people, and, you know, working when there is a debt that we do think we can pursue, that our debt management team are informed and have all the information and are referred to as early as possible. So, I mean, this all comes under our director's sort of transformation program. So our sort of, you know, our sort of governance is through that. We've got very specific targets that we are looking to meet through this team. I mean, just to preempt the question around when we think, well, that the assurance will be guaranteed. Well, as I say, I think this team will be, by early in the new year, should be running with full members of staff. I think some of the systems changes where it may be more difficult to achieve in the short term, but of our supportive and early intervention, I mean, we should be doing that immediately and starting seeing the results of that straight away.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you for preempting my question, because I would have asked it, rest assured. But it sounds to me like action is being taken, and I know it's a particularly difficult area. We do get it, but nevertheless, you do seem to be making improvements, and I'm guessing Simba will be happy the way things are going. But Clive and Adabo are both waving their hands at me. I'm going for Clive first.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Dave. Thank you very much. I remember this came to resources scrutiny a couple of years ago. Denise was there. One of the things we were trying to understand at the time was how much of this outstanding debt was when the service user had died, and therefore it was in the hands of the solicitor or the estate, and that made it really complicated. Is that still the case here? That's question one, Dave.
It is. There is still a proportion of it that is from estates, and as you correctly say, there are issues with that. There are delays, and then which just through the process, and then there's times when unfortunately it just can't be recovered. I think again this is about putting processes in place early on. Can mitigate some of those. I fear that some just aren't. It isn't possible in some cases, but it is a focus of our work. But I still think it's a lot about putting in processes, whether it's powers of attorney or just making sure we have, the processes in place. We will certainly reduce some of those issues.
Okay, you said it was estates and solicitors were a percentage or a proportion. What sort of proportion? We're talking about the 13.6 million, aren't we? Rather than the 30 million overall debts.
Yes, it's about 12.5 now. I've actually got I've got a list of everyone here, and it does actually mark the estate of, as opposed to Mr. X. Yeah. So I could actually I haven't actually filtered it to see what the proportion is, but that's
maybe it's something for resources scrutiny again, part of the budget, because it's a huge amount of money if we're having to, well, we do write it off year after year. So I'm glad to hear we got some processes. I'm glad you're looking at much earlier stages. If you've got 12.5 million now for individuals, and you've got, say, roughly 30 million of adult social care debt? Yes. Does that mean the rest of the care homes? Is that the remainder?
I question that figure now, and my finance colleagues were preparing some information on that. A great deal of that debt was to the CCG, and this is a combination of the mental health, section 117 recharges, pathway 3, which is a pathway out of hospital, various projects. I believe that's come down significantly, but unfortunately I'd say that my focus is more on the individuals, but no, I mean, I appreciate that's part of the bigger picture.
Okay, that's fine. Tim Kent, what's CCG? You know all these acronyms.
Oh, the Clinical Commissioning Group.
Ah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thanks very much, Dave. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Adam Burley, you have a question, please.
No, nothing from me, Chair. I think I'd raise my hands to move my glasses. So
okay. All right. Any questions from anybody else? Okay, well, thank you very much, Dave. And yep, wish you all the best with what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. Okay, Simba, that's all 5. Different answers from different people. And I think we have to allow them the time that they've now set. Would that be your view? And then if clearly if any of them don't achieve what we thought they were going to achieve, we will need to see them again.
Yeah, I think that's okay, Chairman, because within the audit report there will be specific actions agreed in the timeline to implement them, so which will monitor. But any audit with a limited assurance will be subject to a detailed follow-up. So at whatever point we'll be able to do a follow-up and then report accordingly.
Yeah, well, if you feel the need to bring people back because things didn't happen the way we thought they were going to, please feel free. Right, that makes the end of the agenda. We don't traditionally have any other business, but if members will bear with me a second, because we were talking about several hours ago, we were talking about the availability of documents, and obviously we've asked for the report in November, and that's fine. But I think possibly there's another course of action we can take at the same time. We are very fortunate to have Chris Jackson on the committee because he's a whip, and he might perhaps on our behalf could approach the other whips and discuss how they feel we can get around this problem, and if necessary how we can access the agenda of full council in order to resolve this issue. My personal, it's November, the elections are in May. My view is I'd like this sorted before we all go. And so whether that involves putting a motion up to council or putting a report from the audit committee to council, there are a number of options. We clearly have to wait till November and until we get the report back from the legal officer. But if you could do some of the groundwork, Chris, and then by November, if we might well need what you found out, and I'm sure the other whips will be every bit as interested as you are.
Yeah, well, Tim's a whip as well. So if it's okay with Tim, should we add it to the next whips agenda?
Yeah. Okay, and that can sort of be going on, and then
in the background till we get to order.
We put it forward when we need it.
Yeah. Are you okay with that, Tim?
All right. Okay. Sorry, Tim. I didn't know you were a whip as well.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
You okay with that, Tim?
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's a good place to send it.
Yeah, and we won't let this go. We won't let this go. Okay. Right. Well, thank all the officers for attending, and thank you all the councillors and the independent members for attending, and see you all next time. Okay.